This episode is sponsored by Dante's Perfect Treats. Dante's Perfect Treats are crafted with a unique commitment to ensuring the well-being of every pup. These treats are free from preservatives, homemade, and enriched with premium nutritious components. The brand values the importance of a healthy diet for our beloved companions, emphasizing their dedication to wellness in every treat they produce. Check out their Etsy shop, details in the episode notes, and use our code SUDT1 to save.
Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, a new kind of podcast where no topic is off limits. We're bringing in experts and owners to have the conversations we should be having as a dog community. Each week, a new guest will share firsthand experiences, educational resources, or professional guidance to help you learn and grow along with your dog. You won't get one perspective here, you'll get them all, because every dog is different and every owner is too.
You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk, or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm Em, and I'm here with Josh.
Hello.
And his beautiful wife and my best friend, Jen. Hi. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Josh's story. You've gotten to know some of our other guests through their stories, but tonight we're going to talk about Josh and Josh's background and Jen and how they met and kind of our relationship as me not only being their friend, but also being their pet sitter and go-to person for pet advice. So welcome to our show tonight. Thank you.
Yeah. So, we'll do this, I guess, in chronological order. So, my first dog, I've mentioned all my dogs on the show in other episodes, but my first dog was Oliver. And I got Ollie, in 2010. I was married to my first wife, and we decided that we wanted a dog and, kind of went through the local rescues, knew we wanted a rescue. We knew we didn't want like a puppy or anything, and saw this fuzzball that was on the rescue site, and it didn't have a lot of information on him. So I filled out the application and figured I'm an unknown person. Like, I'm sure a bunch of people have asked for this dog, whatever. Well, we got a response the next day, and that was from a rescue that's not around in Cedar Rapids anymore called Little Paws. But people involved in that organization have since gone on to others in the area. And that's when we found out that he was a puppy mill rescue. He was a stud dog for the first 3 years of his life. The puppy mill was busted by the feds. Bunch of dogs were taken, including Oliver, who had never been outside of his cage, never had a haircut, never had his nails trimmed. He was not socialized at all. The only times that he got to leave his kennel were to mate and then shoved right back in. When we met him, it did take a little while. We met at a local park instead of in the house just because of his situation. But it was pretty much he would have to wear diapers for the rest of his life because without specific training that we could not afford, or know how to do ourselves, he wasn't very good at picking those things up. We got him home for the first 2 days. We had a kennel, but we had it open, which I think confused him, but he insisted on staying in the kennel for the first 2 days. The first night, I closed the kennel door, and that's when he started howling and whining. So I opened the door because I'm a soft touch. But after 2 days of him not eating and not really coming out of the kennel, I made a big pot of beef stew, took some of the broth and a little bit of the meat and cooled it and then put it over his kibble. And that finally kind of showed him that, he could come out and from there it was a long road. We really could only have one person at our apartment at a time. Until they got to know him, and then 2 people could come, but both of them had to have gone through the process of him approving them first. He didn't bark for the first year, and I remember being really concerned about that, so I looked it up, and that's when I kind of read about the treatment of puppy mill dogs, and they don't want them barking, so they stick a rod down their throat and sever their well, they're not cords, but they're vocal cords.
Their voice box.
Yep. His did grow back. They weren't sure, because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. His did grow back. But by the time, I was going through my divorce and Jen and I met, he was fairly well adjusted. He was much better than he had been when I first got him. And that was in 2013. So it was 3 more years. He was 6. No. Yeah. 2013, because we didn't get Odie until 2015. So late 2013 is when you moved to the area.
Yeah, and that's when I moved back.
Yep. Yeah. And, now it's your turn, Jen, to talk about meeting this guy and then dealing with his weirdo dog.
So the first time I came to visit, Josh warned me. He said, if you see any messes from the dog, let me know. And we really didn't explain why the dog behaved that way.
And wore a diaper.
And so I was like, okay, this is not my dog, not my house. So whatever. But of course, after getting to know Ollie like 2 times, I was totally in love with him. And as Josh mentioned, he was getting a divorce, and, his ex-wife was saying the dog was hers. And when I moved in, the dog was still with Josh. And I said to Josh, look, either she needs to take this dog and to give us a day, like a date when the dog, when she's going to take the dog, or she's got to give him up. Because if I am indefinitely with this dog, I am not going to want to give him up. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for us, she said she didn't want the dog. Or she couldn't have
She couldn't have the dog.
She didn't want the dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
She couldn't have the dog.
She was then and is still with a lovely guy that we know, but he is allergic to everything.
Yeah.
Which includes pet dander. Yeah. And so that just wasn't a possibility. And so at that point, Ollie, man, he really took to Jen. He would follow her around the house, wherever mom went.
Yeah,
that was where he was going.
He always sat in her lap. That's something I would remember when coming over to that first house you guys had in Marion.
Yeah,
is that he was always sitting with her, and you'd be like, "But that's my dog."
Yeah, not so much. But yeah, and when Jen moved in shortly after that, her and I were both working at the same place, but we were working second shift. Which was rough. I mean, the sleeping in mornings was fine, but Ollie was alone, half in darkness. Half our shift, it was dark. We wouldn't get home until like 11 at night. And that was when, we were at work basically sending each other messages about how we should get another dog. Right. And that is where Odie came into the picture.
Well, we were kind of just casually scrolling through the local rescues. I don't remember the site that we used. It was kind of an aggregator.
Yeah, it was like a pet finder or something.
That's what like that. Yeah.
And Ivy, who worked with us, was also scrolling on our behalf. Because Ivy would adopt all the dogs if she could, but helping someone else adopt a dog was good enough.
Yes. She already had a dog and a cat, and then decided she needed another dog. She wanted a pitty. And she drove from Iowa to Tennessee for a specific dog. It wasn't a breeder. It was like a rescue, but she found the one she wanted.
She knew what she wanted.
She went and got it.
Mm-hmm.
But so she was, on that high of adopting a dog recently, and she found Odie for us. And Josh had told me that I could choose any type of dog I wanted. And, I always wanted a bigger dog. And then she showed me Odie, and I'm like, well, shoot. I remember when you guys were looking, because one of you sent me the page and asked for my opinion about the rescue and the condition of the dog. And I think I even came over like almost immediately after you got him to just like check him out and make sure he seemed like he was in a good, like healthy situation.
Yeah, I want to say this was Fur Fun. I want to say that Odie and Artie both came from Fur Fun. But yeah, and here's the thing: is Oliver was large for a Yorkie. He was very tall. He had long legs.
And he was. If you know what the size of a miniature Schnauzer is, he looked like a miniature Schnauzer, but with Yorkie markings.
Yeah. Odie, however,
looked like a whole other thing.
Yeah, he was the best we could tell. We never did a DNA on him, but the best that they can tell is he was a combination of a toy Yorkie and a regular Yorkie.
Yeah,
So he had like right in the middle.
I would classify him in the teacup status. He was like what, 4 pounds? He was tiny. 7. He was 7 pounds.
Was he?
Yeah, really?
Did he get up to 7?
Yeah, Ollie was like 13, 14 pounds, and he was 7. Yeah, well, I could hold Ollie, but Odie could sit in my hand.
And he would actually sit on your shoulder when you walked around. But
the little parrot dog, I forgot that he did that.
Yeah, he loved to do that.
He did.
But yeah, so we had we contacted the rescue, and we got Odie's story, which is that he lived down in Iowa City with an animal hoarder. So we got him due to basically another raid.
Yeah.
But that was in the trailer park down in Iowa City. And he hadn't been fixed. He was 5 years old. And in his other environment, since he didn't get attention in the house, he would dart out the door and be gone for days and then just come back.
Go look for the ladies.
That's right. So that behavior continued when we got him. And we were warned about it when he first showed up. He also showed up already with a belly band because he, again, had not been really house trained.
Right.
Although he was, at least somebody had worked with him a little bit because he was better at it. He would pee in the house just because he was a jerk.
Yeah, he did.
But from the moment
I think he did because Ollie did.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was
mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I've told this story on a previous show, but the moment that he came into our house and the foster mom put him down on the ground, he was off. He wanted to explore every nook and cranny of our house, and Oliver just went with him.
Yeah.
And they instantly got along. Which I've said before, lightning in a bottle. Like, not that they didn't fight, because they did, but there was not really an integration issue at all.
That was your luck.
Yeah. That was my luck. Yeah. So yeah, we adopted Odie, and that worked out really well. You know, having two Yorkies in the house, and they both were with us through 3 moves.
Well, 3 for Odie.
Yeah, 4 for Oliver. Yeah. Well, and then I had 1, so he had been through 5 moves.
Yeah.
And then we bought our house, and first thing we did was put up a privacy fence in the backyard so that we could just let them out. Because Oliver would walk and be fine until he decided he didn't want to walk anymore, and then it was over. He would just sit down, and you know. Also,
he did not view walks as bathroom time.
Yeah,
walks were something that we made him do. It was a forced march. But Odie would like use that as bathroom time, and he was always going. He's like the miniature version of Fitz. If he was as big as Fitz is, I honestly think that he would beat Fitz out, and I don't think there are many dogs that can beat Fitz out
for energy. Yeah, and he was that way up until right before he passed. He was always go. Well, one day Jen in I remember it was December of 2019 because it was right before the pandemic and everything else hit a crescendo. But we were getting cabinets delivered, and Jen went to work because we still went to offices in those days. And Odie, or Ollie, as he would every day, went downstairs with her and then kind of went in his kennel and did his thing. Odie would stay in bed with me after he went out to pee. And I went downstairs and there were, cabinet guys coming and everything else. And Ollie had just gone into his kennel, laid down, and very peacefully passed away. Probably the best end I could think of for him. He, his brother wasn't bothering him. He was in his kennel. He was surrounded by his favorite smells. He was warm. He was cared for, I
think that's one of the situations, we've talked about this on previous episodes too, where losing a pet and deciding when the right time is and how to let them go and if it's time and all of the questions that you ask yourself. And sometimes it is, again, there's your luck. Mm-hmm. He got to choose. He went on his own terms. He was completely healthy. There was nothing wrong with him. He wasn't, malnourished or mistreated. He was a very happy, healthy little guy, and it was just his time. Then feels appropriate for Oliver to go out on his own terms, though.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing health-wise, and it never really affected his health, is he would have seizures.
Yeah, he did have seizures.
Occasionally, and after the first year of them, he got so used to them that he would know they were coming and take the time to just get in a comfortable area and have his seizure.
Yeah, he usually would come to me.
Yeah.
He had them at night a lot.
Yeah.
And he would come to me in bed, and he, instead of getting on the outside side, he'd get on the inside side and just lay down next to me.
And just
have a seizure, and then
and he would be fine.
Yeah.
He would get done, look around like, hey, what's going on? We probably were worse off.
Well, it's one of those things that's owner responsibility. You're like, this dog is in my care. He's having seizures. And I remember when you guys were going back and forth on, does he need to be on medication all the time? Do we need to only do this when he's having the seizures? And you went through a lot of stuff with the veterinarian and personally making the decision that you felt was right for him. And he ended up thriving, I don't think he ever had a seizure when I stayed with him for you guys.
He really, I think as he got older, the seizures became less frequent. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I don't know enough about dog physiology, but I think that I feel like the farther away from his origin that he got, the better health he had, which, makes sense.
Right. The first time he had seizures, we had him about a year, and we were having a party, my ex-wife and I, at our apartment, and there were a lot of people there, and that was the first time he had a seizure. So, and it freaked everybody out because everybody had been through the month of just you and then two people, and it was kind of, we can finally get everybody together, and the seizure just came out of nowhere and it freaked us out. But by the third time it would happen, I would put on moves like Jagger, and
it was part of, having a seizure dog is something that's really difficult for some owners because it does depend on the frequency and the intensity of the seizures. But he was very mild with his seizures. They were definitely not anything compared to some of the really bad ones that I had seen.
No, they weren't back-breaking or anything like that. And that's pretty much what our vet said was, check the frequency. If you notice it happening more than once a month, we'll check into it. But it's altogether possible that this is just some of the baggage that he has.
Yeah.
Medicating it won't solve the underlying stress.
Right.
It'll just solve the symptom. So yeah. But he had seizures for 8 years because I got him when he was 3. That was in 2010. And he passed in 2019, and he was 12 years old. 13. He had passed his birthday. So he was 13 years old.
Well, I think that, I would like to think that we did a good job of removing a lot of stress from his environment. And that, I'm sure, was a huge help.
Well, think about how it's the same way with people, right? You go to a therapist, you go to your friends, you talk things out. You learn to deal with your trauma. You move past it. And you provided him that safe space to ease into it and realize, hey, I can be a normal dog. Hey, I'm not locked up in this cage anymore. Hey, I know you're laughing because I said he was a normal dog, but, you know.
I don't think that either of them, either Odie or Ollie, really truly understood that they were dogs.
No, I don't think that they did.
Artemis is the closest we've had to a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that, you know, he got to experience the life that he should have been able to experience from the beginning.
Right.
And you guys gave that. That was a gift that you gave to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So moving on to Odie, who we pseudo renamed Odysseus because throughout his entire life, he was a door darter.
Yeah.
He never got over that. He was fixed right before they gave him to us, and that did not change the behavior at all.
Yeah. I mean, he did get better.
Well, once we figured it out, because he would run out the front door, and at the beginning, we would chase after him.
Yeah.
And then that was the game.
Yeah.
But eventually we figured out that if he would run out the front door when we didn't want him to, we just closed the front door. And he'd get like to the end of the sidewalk, and you could watch him turn around to see if you were following him. And then when he saw nobody was coming, he'd just come back to the door and scratch at it to be let in.
That was Cajun. Cajun was the same way. That was the only bad thing that he ever did. He only did it occasionally. It wasn't like an every time thing like it was with Odie. But if he felt like he could be naughty and get away with it for a minute, he would bolt out that door. And if we chased him, game on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just turned around and shut the door, he'd come back and be like, okay, fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of other like quirks with him, but he was...
Odie was just a wild dude. I mean,
Yeah.
my favorite story always, I mean, I'm going to embarrass myself here a little bit, was that Christmas. You guys, I was living with my parents because I was in between moving from a house into an apartment, and I had Toby. Cajun had recently passed, and you guys said, hey, we want to travel for Christmas. Would you come stay with the boys? And, you know, you can bring Toby and you can just get away from, you know, your family for a week around the holidays.
Yeah, I made a bunch of food, filled the fridge.
Come over and have tortellini soup and meatballs and, you know, enjoy it. And I was like, heck yeah. So I went over and I stayed at their house. And on Christmas Day, they had this back door that had one of those locks on it that was like the little, like, twist lock on the knob. It wasn't like a deadbolt. It was
there was a deadbolt.
Yeah. But if you didn't turn the lock on the handle before you went outside, you locked yourself out. So on Christmas Day, I locked myself out of Josh and Jen's house, was locked out of their house for about 30 minutes after trying to get in every window and door possible, walked up to the Walgreens that thankfully was open, called my dad, called the locksmith, spent $300 to get locked back or let back into their house, and never, ever, ever forgot a key from someone's house again.
Also, funny enough that locksmith actually let you in.
I mean, I just said I was pet sitting and he opened the door. So, you know, I actually,
You may have given him the phone to one of us, like just to be like, hey, you know.
Yeah.
But
that was a long time ago.
Yeah. That was well, and the thing was we were like, why didn't we give like your parents a spare key? I think it was after that we made sure like Bear had a spare key, his parents had a spare key, because we were like, oh no, I felt so bad.
Well, and it wasn't your fault. It was just one of those things. But that was when, you know, we met the Terror Twins.
Oh my
that
gosh,
were Odie and Toby.
Odie and Toby, unsupervised.
Oh my gosh, those two. I finally get let back into the house at this point, and it looks like a mass grave of stuffing in the living room. I mean, they probably destroyed like 30 toys. And your dogs are not dogs that like they didn't really play with things like a whole lot. Odie did.
Yeah.
But Ollie
would be tender with a toy and love it forever, or
systematically surgery with tiny teeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eyes first.
Dismemberment.
And then he would open it. He wouldn't like Toby and Odie would like, it was like the toy went through a blender. Oliver would very carefully remove the eyes first, but then open a seam.
Yeah.
And then pull all the stitching out until he got to the squeaker. And then he would destroy the squeaker. And the toy was just left behind.
Right.
There were a lot of those times that I spent, because I sat for you guys a lot of times, that Ollie and I would just sit on the couch and watch Toby and Odie just
Running around.
mayhem. Toys exploding in the wake. It was like their own little battlefield in your living room. It was so ridiculous.
Yep.
That sounds about
The
right.
three very best friends, and Ollie just was like, "Oh, you guys suck so much."
Well, that was pretty much. We called him Old Man Dog for a reason.
Well, we thought Oliver had a good amount of energy, and then we got Odie.
Yeah. Well, and then we just weren't sure, though. We weren't sure if it was because Odie was just exhausting and Oliver just finally was like, fine, I'm going to calm down now. Or if it was just the comparison of Odie. Like,
I think it was the comparison.
Yeah.
Honestly.
it makes me think of, and this is totally going to date me, Irma Bombeck, who used to have a newspaper column. She's a comedian. She wrote a book, and one of the things about it was like things in your house, like instructions for her children. And one of them was, if the dog is jumping higher than the door frame, the dog needs to go outside. So every time Odie did crazy stuff, I always thought of that.
Odie did do a lot of crazy stuff. He was mischievous, busy, hyper little just ball of fur that you would not see him coming, and then all of a sudden he was just there,
Yeah.
like in your face, and you were like, "Whoa, dude, seriously?"
Yeah.
He's just like, "Hi, how's it going?"
Well, with the parroting thing, he loved the back of couches because people would be sitting on a couch and all of a sudden he would just appear, like his paws on your shoulder, being like, "What are we doing? What's going on?"
What's the deal? What are you eating? Let me see what you're doing. I need to be involved in everything.
Face. He would lick Josh's face so intensely that I'm like, that dog is going to eat your face.
Yeah.
He was definitely a character.
So Ollie passed in 2019, December 2019, and the pandemic then hit shortly after, and we're in the house, we're working from home, and Odie is going nuts. And so we were like, well, maybe it's time to get another dog. And that is when we found Marty is who she was on the listing. And we were kind of brainstorming. We're like, we don't really like Marty, but we want something close enough to that she recognizes it's your name, because we don't know her background. We don't know, so as long as enough syllables are in common, she'll probably pick it up. Didn't know how smart she was at the time, but we could have named her anything.
You could have.
But I was like, okay, Marty to Artie, and Artie would be Artemis, to go with Odysseus and Artemis, like the whole, gods and heroes idea. And so they brought her by. She was very shy. And she had been a surrender for a man in Missouri who had her and two other dogs.
But they were really small.
Yeah. And he had been in the hospital a couple of times, and he had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the nurse got to know him well enough that he told her, "Oh yeah, I have dogs," and told her, "I live alone," through separate conversations. So she put together, he had been in the hospital for 3 days.
And there was nobody.
And there was nobody. Yep. And they were outside.
They were outside.
Oh my.
And I don't know. I mean, it was Missouri, so if it were summer, it would have been pretty bad.
Yeah. But the nurse also knew Fur Fun up here. And actually they let him go back home to his dogs. She came to check on him a couple days later, and he had fallen.
Yeah.
And so that's when they made the decision that the dogs needed to be surrendered.
It's a good decision, I think.
Yeah.
He had kids in the area, but they couldn't take the dogs. So that was when.
Yeah.
They were quirky. They were very, very much on her way.
But yeah, the story of Artie walking through the door and being here for the first time, that was Jen's story, because
Well, so they brought the dog over and we took her in our backyard because we didn't want to bring her into the house because there was already a dog there and we knew that Odie was Odie. So we figured that would be better if we didn't just bring her directly into his house. So we brought her into the backyard, and this was a month after the derecho. So it was still
September.
Yeah, it was still not, there were still tree branches, and it was.
Quick note for people that don't know what a derecho is, because none of us did until it hit our town.
Yeah.
It's a land-based hurricane, and it hit Cedar Rapids, Iowa in August of 2020.
Yeah.
And it destroyed so much.
75% of our tree cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But so it was like the backyard was still like, it was okay. Like we picked up, like there weren't like trees laying down, but it just still felt
Messy.
unsettled,
Yeah.
And when the rescue brought her over, the woman who brought her was not the foster. It was like someone who worked. She picked up.
Oh, a volunteer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or one of the on the board, something. I don't know. She's with the rescue. And Artie did not like her. She did not like her. And so at first I couldn't tell if
She didn't like us.
Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if she was like liking us because we weren't her. And so, the rescue, did they take her or leave her that day?
No, they took her.
Okay.
Because as soon as they left, you were upset at even the idea that you could not have this dog.
Yes. So they let us take her on a trial basis before we agreed to adopt, because we have Odie in the house. And I think we had her for 2 weeks before we, finally did the adoption. And she was really, she still is very shy,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also very,
She's shy with dogs, but not people.
she's shy. She was shy with people.
She was. She's not anymore. But...
Yeah, but she's also like, I don't know, I guess scared. She's very nervous.
She's timid.
Yeah. Well, it's if she thinks you're walking behind her, she's like, oh, scoots out of the way kind of thing. She's very timid. Yeah. She still is to a certain extent. She's much better now. And for a while, it was like she would not go into the kitchen. Like I almost had to drag her, and our back door is in the kitchen. So to let her out into the yard, I almost had to, like, finally, if I went back to where she was sitting and made her walk with me, at first I had to like hold her collar, and then I didn't have to hold her collar, but I had to walk her to the door. She wouldn't just go to the door. And she's so smart. She is so smart.
Yeah.
Like, anything that I tried to teach her, she got it immediately. Like she had never played with a ball before. And I was like, do you want to fetch it? And she was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And I threw it, and she was like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, now go get it. And she looked at me, and she looked where I threw the ball, and she looked at me, and she went and got the ball and brought it back. And then she was done.
Yeah, she is definitely a totally different energy level than the boys were. She is very much more a relaxed couch potato, happy to, hang out with you kind of dog. But again, that's another area where she's really timid, because a lot of times she prefers to sit by herself versus sit with other people. I mean, there have been plenty of times where I've watched one of you or myself try to get her to come sit with me, and she's like, nope, and goes and does her own thing.
Yeah. Well, another thing that's really interesting about her is when she's on the leash, she won't go to the bathroom. She won't take a treat. She is working. And I don't know if that's part of like her genetic makeup, the breeds that make up, because she does have like 3 different working dogs.
We should say she is a mutt.
Yeah, she is a mutt.
She does have an embark DNA test result as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I was grateful for, especially the health, health genetics, because, there are a lot of dogs that have issues that are genetically related. So, and I appreciated the fact that the embark, like, not only told me what breeds she make up her genetic makeup, but also any health issues, which fortunately she really doesn't have any.
Yeah.
She has like one, and it's like a back thing.
Back spine thing. Yeah, I think I remember discussing that with you because it was just
Really
one of those
rare.
predisposition things, and it'll either happen or it won't happen.
Right.
So she has, I remember, Australian Shepherd,
So
Cocker Spaniel.
yeah.
There's some pity in there.
Yeah, but not very much. She looks like that's the
She looks like a lab.
She looks like a lab beagle mix.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have
Any beagle.
Yeah, she doesn't have any beagle at all. So we'll put when we post your story, to advertise, everybody will be able to see what Artie looks like because we'll post it up on the socials. But she really does. She looks like a cross between a beagle and a retriever and like a healer.
Yeah. But I pulled it up. She's Border Collie, Cocker Spaniel, Australian Shepherd, Labrador Retriever, only 10% lab. Mini Australian Shepherd, small amount of American Pit Bull, and a small amount of Golden Retriever. So when people ask me like what breed she is, and I'm like, all the breeds that families want.
Yes. Yeah. No, all the really good family dogs.
Yeah.
And she's so integration was a big thing because she was timid and she was in a house with a dog that was not.
Mm-hmm.
And so this little 7-pound dog would constantly be going up to this 45-pound dog and basically ordering her around, which worked for the first couple months. Actually, it was more than that. They didn't have their first incident until like 3 months in. And that is when, there was a fight. And looking back on it, we probably could have done more. But at the time we had no idea. Like, we had no idea what had even happened.
What triggered it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a hard thing to identify, especially when you're not expecting this because the behavior up to this point has been fine.
Mm-hmm.
There were no incidents in the prior home that you were aware of.
Right.
So
there was no the foster.
Yeah, nothing. So it's really hard to tell, what button it was that Odie pushed. And again, we're just going to put this out here again because this story is going to get rough, that this is a place where there's no shame and there's no judgment, and these are relatable stories, and I know that there are listeners out there who need to hear this story. So with that being said, it did escalate.
Yeah. So first instance, they just all of a sudden were into it. It was in the living room, and we thought, no, well, 2 of them were in the living room, but we thought it might have had something to do with food because there was food out at the time. And so Odie ended up having to get stitches. He was drugged out for a little bit, but, bounced back because that's what Odie did.
That's what Odie did.
And then was fine. And again, another 5 months went by and we were outside and we have like one of those covers that we put on the grill and Odie was under it. And Artie, for some reason, thought that was the worst thing and they got into it again.
Yeah.
So again, we're thinking, okay, maybe some fat had fallen on the ground. Maybe it's a food thing. So we started being very cautious about food.
Yeah, you put that little fence up around the grill so nobody could get in there. I mean, you definitely took measures to prevent this from happening again.
Mm-hmm.
But again, still hadn't been able to identify exactly what that trigger was.
Right. And then the last instance was December of 2021 because we had a night where the winds got as bad like the derecho.
Yeah.
And they were actually saying it might have been another derecho. So we were nervous. We were in the living room. Jen was a wreck and stressed. Artie was in the room with us, and Odie just walked in, and she actually crossed the room at him.
Yeah. Well, no, he was in my lap, and I got up.
Right.
He was in my lap, and I got up, and I was very stressed out about the wind and what was going on. And, I got up fairly abruptly, and he was used to that. He was just like, he might have been just sitting next to me. And he got up, like usually when one of us would get up, he would jump down and run to see wherever we were going. And no idea what happened. Like all of a sudden she was just on.
Yeah. You had taught me the wheelbarrow method, which is how you get a dog off another dog to grab their back legs and lift, because it releases their jaw.
The jaw. Yeah.
But by that time she had shooken him.
Yes.
So that was when I called you.
Yeah, and I came the next day.
Yeah.
And we went to the emergency hospital.
And the emergency hospital told us they were full and we had to go to Des Moines.
No, we didn't go.
Oh, no.
I drove you out there, and
Yeah,
we
that's
drove
right.
out
They
to the
told
emergency-
me
Yeah,
we will not take him.
yeah. And I put Josh in my car
Yep.
with Odie wrapped up in a towel, and I drove him to the emergency clinic, and I said, Josh, go stand in front of those doors and hold your dog up. They will let you in. And
Yeah,
they
they
did.
Yeah.
But yeah, from there, I mean, so at that point, got him when he was 5. That was in 2013. Or 2015. This is in 2021. So he was 11. No, he was 12.
Yeah, 12. Yeah.
So he's 12 years old.
Yeah.
He couldn't recover.
Yeah.
He spent the next couple days on painkillers. He had a drain in, and he wasn't taking food. He wasn't taking water. I finally got broth in him and thought, okay, maybe he's starting to, and then he actually, God, we were going to have our Christmas dinner that night because you were going to Arkansas and I was staying. There was a reason we were having Christmas in the house that night, and it was a couple nights before actually Christmas. But I was playing video games. He was on my lap, and I just realized, I was petting him, and all of a sudden I just realized he was cold.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember I had gone to the store, and when I got back, I came over and he's like, yeah, there's Mom. And I said hi to him, and he was, he kind of like perked up a little bit. And then I went into the kitchen and you called me 10 minutes later
and said he's gone.
Yeah.
But in the spirit of this show and how we talk about, things that it's difficult to talk about, we had to deal with the fact that the dog that we have killed our other dog. Yeah. I remember like that night we were laying in bed and I said, I just have to get it out and say it once. She killed my dog. And obviously we've moved on since then. We're almost 2 years later.
Yeah.
But we have kind of decided we're not going to risk it again.
Yeah.
We're not
fair.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
Not fair to anybody. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to a new dog. I mean, Fitz is a reactive dog. He doesn't like other dogs. And when Toby passes, there won't be another dog. It'll just be Fitz. And then after Fitz, I'm sure there will be plenty more dogs. Yes. But yeah. Fitz just doesn't like other dogs, and he'll be okay being a solo dog. And Artie loves being a solo dog.
Yes.
She loves it. She soaks up the attention. She has her favorite people. I mean, I come over here and she immediately, I have to greet her, or, she's upset with me. She makes
unreal noises.
Yes. Yeah. She makes those little noises. Like, and it's so hard not to say hello because she's like right there going,
Yeah.
So, it is.
Weird, groany,
yeah,
unearthly, weird sound that you think she's being strangled or something. I don't know.
I mean, she is, she's a great dog. She's a super unique dog. And she is really great and really friendly. And it really did surprise me when that happened with Odie. But again, that's another situation that kind of validates, again, what I'm trying to do here is, Jen, you guys came to me several times when the fights, the 3 times that it happened.
Yeah.
And even in between, just discussing, like, how can we identify what's going on here? You were being proactive. You weren't just letting it happen and not trying to do anything about it. And I think sometimes that's all you can do.
I mean, I hired a trainer, and, he was just as baffled. He's like, so what's the trigger? And I'm like, well, that's what we'd like to know.
Yeah, we have absolutely
is what
no
the
idea.
trigger is. And, to this day, we can theorize, but we'll never know what the triggers were.
Well, there's a new field in the veterinary field, which is really exciting. And I'm doing research and I'm looking now currently, and hopefully in the next year or 2, we will get one on the show because there are very few of them. There's only like 80 of them.
but they're veterinary behaviorists, and they specialize in case studies like this and help break those cycles and behaviors. And I think that it would be really cool to potentially tell your story to a vet behaviorist and just kind of get an opinion on what they think. So maybe we won't ever have a full answer, but maybe one day we can give you something that will at least satisfy that curiosity a little bit.
Well, absolutely. And that kind of knowledge, you know, obviously it would be for a different dog somewhere down the road, but just having that basis of understanding, you know, for behaviors. And, you know, individual dogs are individuals. They have their own personalities. They have their own quirks. They have their own hangups. So you can't say, oh, if XYZ happens, then it's this, because they're themselves. They're individuals.
Yep. That's one of the taglines of the show is every owner is different and every dog is different, because every personality is completely individual from any other personality, and you can't ever predict what's going to happen. You can't ever predict a behavior. You can try to, you know, train your dogs to act a certain way, and they can be the most perfect angel of a dog, and then something triggers them that you have no idea what it was at all, and it changes your dog. And it could be temporary or it could be permanent. And identifying those things is really difficult and sometimes expensive. And again, this show is going to be a plethora of resources for people who are in situations like this. So they know, hey, I can go and look, and I know that they talked to that trainer who said this, or they talked to that vet behaviorist who said that, and be able to click on those websites and hopefully prevent something like this from happening in their own home.
Yeah. And you know what? If there is anyone out there, you know, wondering about, you know, I had this situation, how I can't tell you how to forgive your other dog. I just can't. Because for me, it was a process. You know, I did my best never to be upset with her, because she doesn't know, you know, she's a dog. She was working off of an instinct, or she was working off of a trauma, or she was working off of something. There is no behavior that needs to be adjusted now. Yeah. There's no morality there. You know, we're even to the point where I joke, you know, but I have a dark sense of humor, that Artie's never done anything wrong except for murder that one time.
Yeah, from that one time. I mean, yeah, and it's been, like you said, it's been a couple of years now. So, yeah, as I remember when that happened, it being the winter and coming over and everything. But again, that is definitely, it's a process. It's something that you have to grieve through, you have to heal through. And I mean, I would certainly say that your relationship with Artie since then and now has changed, because you did withdraw from her a little bit initially, which is totally understandable given what happened. But now, you know, like, you give her little taste of your drink before dinner and when we eat. And, you know, she goes to you specifically when she wants to go outside for a certain need. And she goes to Jen when she wants to go outside specifically for a certain need. She is a very smart dog. She definitely knows her boundaries and who to go to and how to look at the person the right way to get exactly what she wants. So, I mean, I can definitely say I have witnessed the evolution of your relationship with her. And I think with Jen, you more so, you did the mother thing. You completely took her under your wing at that point, and you made her your child, and you babied her, and you told her she was a good girl, and you made her feel safe. And, you know, I think that you guys did the very best thing that you could in a very bad situation.
I mean, the first time she attacked Odie, I was like, Josh is going to make me give her back. And so I was upset that Odie was hurt. I was upset that I thought Josh was going to make me give her back. So I was just a ball. I was a mess.
Yeah, it just, you know, that's another one of those things we have to look forward to. In future episodes, I'm going to have a person come on that specializes in grief counseling, specifically based around pet grief. And I think that'll be another excellent resource for the listeners, because going through these situations is really difficult. And, you know, we were all very lucky in that situation because you had each other to lean on, but you also had me who had seen much worse things. And, you know, it again, in the veterinary field, you just see things that cannot be unseen. And that, unfortunately, was not the worst of what I had seen. But you guys were able to ask questions and try to do better. And again, that's all we're trying to do here. So hopefully, my hope is that your story tonight will help other people in a situation that's hard, because I'm getting upset to just like thinking about, because it was hard. It was awful. It was really sad. And I think we all grieved that little demon dog, because he was such a big personality, and that was not how I expected that he would go.
Yeah.
And I have to commend both of you for, you never tried to hide it. You guys were always honest about it. And while we didn't maybe necessarily talk about it a whole lot when you were going through the grieving period, we have opened up and brought it back up into discussion again more recently. And, you know, obviously you guys were open enough to come onto the show and talk about it. And I think that that's part of the healing process too.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to go hug my dog.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's how we're going to unfortunately leave on a sad note tonight. But thank you again for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. And thank you, Josh and Jenn, for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good night. We'll see you next week. This episode is sponsored by Dante's Perfect Treats. Dante's Perfect Treats are crafted with a unique commitment to ensuring the well-being of every pup. These treats are free from preservatives, homemade, and enriched with premium nutritious components. The brand values the importance of a healthy diet for our beloved companions, emphasizing their dedication to wellness in every treat they produce. Check out their Etsy shop, details in the episode notes, and use our code SUDT1 to save.
Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited, produced, and co-hosted by Josh Wasta under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe to be sure you don't miss an episode, and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.